$10,395. Book now with Flight Centre and you'll fly free. Talk to an expert today, in-store, online, or call 131 600.
Life is full of distractions. Luckily, my new Westinghouse cooktop comes with a pause button.
Please try to make a television commercial.
Wish they had a pause button. Westinghouse, really clever.
Do this. That furry feeling? It's harmful bacteria, and it's making harmful little bacteria babies in your mouth. I call it the fur factor. Fortunately, there's good news. Colgate Total.
Its unique technology bonds to 100% of your mouth surfaces, providing superior protection for 12 hours.
Fight the fur factor with Colgate Total.
Try the Colgate Total range for a healthier mouth in 2 weeks.
Matt doesn't run a big corporation. Dave doesn't have offices all over the state. And Ellen doesn't have hundreds of employees, just these little guys. But this month only, Holden's treating everyone as if they're a big business with Holden Fleet Pricing for All. Now you can save like a fleet buyer without being one on a great range of new vehicles, but it must end July 31. See your Holden dealer today and get Holden Fleet Pricing for All. Let's go there.
Live from the Sky News Centre, To The Point with Christina Keneally and Peter Van Onselen.
Well, welcome to The Point. Peter Van Onselen, good to be here with you on the set.
I never know where I'm sitting. You keep moving me around the set.
You poor darling. You poor thing.
I've got enough to worry about here. I'm trying to run Newsday and you move me all around the set. Anyway, all right,
anyway,
what are we doing?
What have you got to worry about? You've got your day planned. Bronwyn Bishop, woe to go all day long
well,
here.
Hey, it's not my doing. She's apologised. It's over now, isn't it? Dead, buried and cremated.
No, it's not. No, it is definitely not over yet. In fact, let's...
I forgot to put my microphone on because you moved me all the way over.
See what I have to work with? Australian public.
It's ridiculous. All right.
I mean, I thought the Australian Labor Party in New South Wales in those last few months was a challenge.
Well, yeah, you move all around the set. I'll keep the microphone off. It's more likely I can move to another seat easily. All right.
Oh, that would be great.
Let me get your view on this, though. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we can sort of keep attacking Bronwyn Bishop because of her lack of contrition
like
for 3 weeks.
Fish in a barrel.
Oh, it's ridiculous. But what about the politics of it? Let's step away from her obvious stupidity in relation to the flight and her obvious misuse, according to the pub test, of entitlements, and her obvious strangeness in having these confidential sources when she goes off to multiple weddings of colleagues and just happens through serendipity to be there at the same time that these confidential sources have got important matters of state that they need to talk to her about in private. Like, put all of that to one side. If you're the Prime Minister dealing with this debacle, or not dealing with it as he has been for the last 3 weeks, what's the strategy here? Is he better off to just stick with her because, let's face it, there's tar all over this baby, or is he better off to actually cut her loose and then perhaps have the wrath of Bronwyn Bishop laid upon him? I mean, if anyone knows Tony Abbott inside out, it would be her.
You got to think, if your choice is the wrath of the voters, which we saw in that poll yesterday, that reach-tell poll that came out of the electorate of Sturt, if your choice is the wrath of the voters or wrath of Bronwyn Bishop, I think it's a pretty easy choice. You know, Bronwyn goes, you make good and pace with the voters, and have to agree with Bill Shorten yesterday. Now, you might be surprised to hear me say those words, but I'd have to agree with him.
Well, I'm not surprised to hear you say it on camera, but I'd be surprised to hear you say it off camera.
Oh, yeah, please. What? You are a real joy to work with.
Just saying, yeah. Hashtag just saying, but no, what
I was going to say is where Bill Shorten is absolutely correct, and I'm losing my voice here, this is what working with you does to me. What Bill Shorten is absolutely correct about is it is inconceivable that this saga, this soap opera, will carry on until Parliament resumes. It's inconceivable that it's carried on for 3 weeks. I mean, and I think there's a cultural difference here between Labor and Liberal, in that if this was a Labor speaker, I think the person would have been cut loose 22 days ago.
But the point, though, is would that have been a mistake? I mean, that's what I think is the interesting part of the analysis here. Look, and I'm almost surprised that I'm saying this, but I almost think that the Prime Minister is at a point now where maybe he shouldn't cut her, not for moral reasons or appropriateness, but for pure base political tactics. Maybe he now is at a point where he shouldn't cut her because he has incurred all the tar attached to holding on to her this far. To now cut her, he would then also incur the attacks from her close allies on the right of the Liberal Party, of which he's a member.
Look at today, though. Look at today. The Prime Minister of Australia was unable to get up and talk about the deaths of Australians on MH17 and Russia being the only nation that's voted that down.
He issued a press
release. Our Prime Minister issued a press release. He couldn't get up and talk about it.
The man who was going to shirt front Vladimir Putin couldn't, for political reasons, because you'd get asked about Bronwyn Bishop, even go before a microphone. He issued a press statement. It's pretty bad.
It is. And I think in this circumstance, he is putting loyalty to Bronwyn Bishop over the fortunes of backbenchers and frontbenchers in their seats at the next election. And they're not going to, at the end of the day, how can they be happy about
It was a Liberal
that?
MP who said to me, words to the effect of, we're trying to save one person in a safe North Shore electorate at the potential sacrifice of 10 in outer metropolitan marginal electorates. But I'm not sure that's right, because I think there's so much damage now that I'm thinking that the damage, to the extent of holding on to her, is there now, whether he cuts her loose or not. But there is new potential damage if he cuts her loose because of what she might do in retaliation, or what some of her supporters might, or how he might feel with her being such a close ally.
How can she inflict more damage than has been inflicted for the past?
Depends where it goes from here, doesn't it?
I mean, it does. And that apology, an apology offered when you were about to lose your job, as Bill Shorten did point out.
3 weeks late's the key.
3 weeks late, and still refusing to say she did anything wrong. Still refusing to admit that she did anything wrong, and clearly for her that's the technical difference she doesn't want to acknowledge.
What about Kelly O'Dwyer, though? We're going to be talking shortly to a frontbencher in Paul Fletcher. He'll join us here in the studio, but I was talking to Kelly O'Dwyer on Newsday. Yesterday we had the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party. I think this was really significant. Julie Bishop refused to support the Speaker. She also said that she is no doubt considering her position. We know from her media conference today she ain't considering it. Also, very senior frontbencher, touted as a future leader or a future treasurer, Scott Morrison, also refused to support the Speaker. Today, I asked her 4 times, gave her 4 opportunities to support Bronwyn Bishop, and Kelly O'Dwyer refrained from doing so.
I thought that was quite telling from Kelly O'Dwyer, and of course she might represent a part of the party which would wants to see a conscience vote on gay marriage. She spoke very confidently about that occurring, and also would not be overjoyed to be fronting up to an interview here on Sky News.
I bet she was glad she agreed to that interview.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Paul Fletcher is overjoyed that he's on our show.
Well, we should go to him now. We shouldn't waste any more time when we could be talking about the Speaker.
We could be talking to Paul Fletcher. How are you?
Look, I am overjoyed to be with you. I'm overjoyed to see the chemistry between the two of you. I think it's working very well.
Oh, thank you.
I was thinking, really, this is effectively the Sonny and Cher of Australian political commentary.
Look at that. Look over there, distraction. Just
very, very smooth.
Yeah.
And will we be seeing you sing "I've Got You, Babe"? That's what I'm expecting from the Sonny and Cher of Australian political commentary.
But more seriously, though, Paul Fletcher, does Bronwyn Bishop have your full support?
Bronwyn Bishop is a valued and respected senior friend and colleague. Look, Bronwyn has made an error of judgment. She's admitted that herself. She's apologised to the Australian people. She said that she has repaid the money in relation to the helicopter charter, and she'll be repaying some other money as well. So I welcome the fact that she's done that.
So does she therefore have your full support?
Well, look, it's really not a question of whether she has my support or anybody else's support. The point is this, that Bronwyn is the Speaker of the House. She's doing a good job as the Speaker of the House. She's indicated this morning that she's made an error of judgment. She's apologised for that. She's repaid money that was paid in relation to the helicopter charter. She's indicated that she'll be repaying some other money as well. Look, these rules are complex. Errors get made from time to time. When errors get made, it's important to acknowledge that and to correct that. And I welcome the fact that Bronwyn's done that. But can I just say this?
I want to ask one more time, though. Does she have your full support?
Well, look, it would frankly be presumptuous for me to be offering advice to Bronwyn Bishop. She's a very respected, valued senior colleague. I think she's doing a good job as Speaker of the House. And Bronwyn's been around the place a lot longer than I have. She's well able to make her own judgments. She doesn't need gratuitous advice from a reasonable...
We're not asking for advice. I mean, I've got to think 4 weeks ago, if you'd been on the programme and we asked you the same question, you would have said yes, absolutely, and moved on, because there was no issue before her and before the Parliament. Now we have an issue that she has managed to drag out for 3 weeks. Is it really tenable for the Parliament to resume with Bronwyn Bishop in the Speaker's chair?
Look, those are questions for political commentators. I'm not going to get into...
Well, you have a vote in that process.
I'm not going to get into political commentary. You guys are good professional commentators and you're busy doing lots of commentary, and good luck to you. I'm focused, like every member of the Abbott government, on the issues that we were elected to deal with, and you know, I'm focused on issues in my portfolio, issues like delivery of education, direct distance education over satellite broadband. I was in Brisbane delivering a speech to the Isolated Children's Parents Association yesterday. I'm focused on issues like $385 million on improved mobile infrastructure, 499 new mobile base stations. So these are the issues that I'm working on. All of my colleagues are working on policy issues to deliver better outcomes for the Australian people.
And so is your Senior Minister Malcolm Turnbull. He was doing the same when he tweeted that he was catching a train from Melbourne to Geelong. He pointed out no aerial involvement on his trip.
Look, I caught a train this morning. Many of us catch trains.
Not everyone.
Many of us catch trains.
As Malcolm Turnbull's parliamentary secretary,
in my case, it's not. Well, we are required to give reports on, you know, how much public transport used. No, but in my case, it's not as newsworthy that I caught a train as the fact that Malcolm catches trains. Malcolm catches trains all the time. Lots of us use public transport, use a range of means of transport. But look, the serious point is, yes. Bronwyn Bishop, as Speaker, has acknowledged she's made an error of judgment. She's apologised. She's indicated that she's going to be repaying the money that was expended. These are areas where the guidelines are complex.
Has your support?
Bronwyn is a valued senior friend and colleague, and look, it would just be presumptuous for me, as somebody who's only been around a few years, to be giving her gratuitous advice. She will make her own decisions, and she's spoken at length this morning to Alan Jones on Sydney Radio. I welcome the fact that she's admitted she's made an error of judgment.
What took so long, do you think? I mean, that's a serious question.
Again,
she could have done this 3 weeks ago. Why did it take so long to utter those words? They do say that saying sorry is one of the hardest things to do.
That is really a question that political commentators can mull over the entrails over. I'm more interested in issues about delivering communication services to Australians in regional and remote Australia, where the Coalition is interested in issues like free trade agreements with China, Korea, Japan. We're interested in seizing the economic moment and the opportunities that present themselves to Australia.
Okay, well, let me ask you another question, and unfortunately it is still related to Bronwyn.
We will move on eventually.
We will, but this is something that I think the public doesn't quite understand. And you've served on a number of committees in the Parliament, joint committees, committees relating to infrastructure and communications, committees relating to cyber safety. This idea that you go and meet confidentially with a source that can inform the committee, or that you don't get approval, or that a chair doesn't get approval for committee travel, is that something you've experienced previously? Is that something that, in your understanding of the parliamentary system, is done regularly?
Look, I'm not going to get into specifics. I'll simply make this point, that the way the system works is that as a member of the Parliament, the federal Parliament, covering the totality of Australia, you have an entitlement to travel on parliamentary business, electorate business, portfolio business and so on. Now that's something you need to do your job. In my case, I've been to over 40 electorates around the country over the last 18 months, held over 60 community meetings on issues to do with regional and remote communications. So I've been travelling all over the country. Plenty of my colleagues are doing the same thing.
There are rules around committee travel, you know that, Paul.
We're all travelling around the country, and the point is, in relation to all of the areas of travel, there are rules. They're complex, and errors are made from time to time. That's just in the nature of a process. Now, can I say, I absolutely understand, all of us understand, that the Australian people expect us to be careful with taxpayers' money, and we have heard, certainly, a clear message, and it's clear from the comments the Speaker has made that she's heard a clear message. She's admitted it was an error, she's apologised, she said that the money in relation to the helicopter flight has already been repaid and she'll be repaying other money, because the Australian people properly expect us to use their money in a careful way as we go about our job.
How could she stay as Speaker then? I mean, genuinely stay as Speaker, apart from just, if nothing else, the fact that if you're on probation on the order of the Prime Minister, how can you maintain a facade of independence?
Look, Bronwyn Bishop is an experienced and capable Speaker. The question of her capacity to perform the job as Speaker, I think we've seen amply demonstrated over the last 18 months, 20 months. I think she's done a good job.
Including things like going on Q&A and taking partisan positions in the public. I mean, the Speaker is meant to be non-partisan. I mean, you say she's an experienced and capable Speaker. There's plenty of other interpretation that would say she's politicised the position of Speaker far more so than any of her predecessors.
Well, she's a tough, formidable lady, and she doesn't brook much nonsense in the parliament. It's unsurprising that there are some people who don't like that.
She's gone out, well, I'm not talking about, I mean, we can get into her ejections record, which is overwhelmingly one-sided. That wasn't my point. My point is she goes on to shows like Q&A and puts forward partisan points and takes partisan arguments up with other people on the panel. She holds fundraising events in her speaker's dining room. She has very much taken this role as she attends party room meetings, I believe. Isn't that the case?
Well, let me just understand, Christina. Are you putting to me the proposition that you think that she should no longer be Speaker because of the particular way she's chosen to conduct herself as Speaker?
No, I'm challenging your assertion that she's a capable Speaker.
I think she's a very capable Speaker.
Because I would say she's been a very partisan Speaker, and that really undercuts the capability of what is meant to be a non-partisan position.
So I would put to you that if she was a truly independent Speaker, there might have been more sympathy for her, including if she'd apologised earlier. But I think that had she been a more independent Speaker, as previous Liberal and Labor Speakers have, never as much as I'd like to see, quite frankly, compared to the British system, but nonetheless more independent. I think if she was more like that and less of a warrior for one side, there might have been more sympathy with the sort of rot that she's got herself in.
Well, look, again, I'll leave that to you as a commentator to draw that observation. I'll simply repeat the point. She's acknowledged that she made an error of judgment. She's apologised. She's said that she has already repaid the money in relation to the helicopter flight, and there's some other money she's going to be repaying, and I welcome that.
Let's move on. Let's move on to other issues with one question that sort of slightly intersperses with this. She has said that her regret early on was the distraction of this from the Labor Party and so forth. You talked about a whole plethora of other issues that we'll now have a discussion about, free trade, your portfolio specifically, etc. You must at least find it just frustrating, I suppose, that instead of having talked about that from the get-go, we're only now getting to it.
Peter, I have to be honest with you and say I've been on your show many times, and I've not,
happens all the time.
I've not infrequently experienced the frustration that it's been difficult to spend enough time talking on substantial policy issues because there's the particular political issue of the day that you decide you want to pursue.
So is your point that this is just a small political issue like every other?
I'm simply making the point that there are lots of substantive issues that we're working on, and I'm happy to talk about those till the cows come home, as are all of my colleagues, because we are here to do a job for the Australian people.
Unfortunately, we're right out of time. No, I'm not. No, we will move.
Well, you are the Parliamentary Secretary to the Ministry for Communications. Of course, one of the big issues roll out of the NBN. Now, this is slightly cheeky because it does really relate to this whole issue of travel, though, because the NBN rolled out should allow for a whole lot of interaction, online video conferencing, et cetera, that will come to great benefit to remote and regional Australia, the area you've spoken about. Presumably, it might mean MPs don't have to travel as much, but we'll leave that to the side.
Look, it may, and indeed one of the significant benefits of improved broadband infrastructure around Australia will be the capacity for people to live 2, 3, 4, 5 hours drive from a capital city and conduct business where they're serving clients in the capital cities, in other parts of the country and all around the world. And I've met some really interesting examples of people doing that now. For example, a guy in Darlington Point on the Murrumbidgee who runs a software business serving people all around the world. Now, he happens to have good connectivity where he is, but too many people today don't have good connectivity.
How much will you flatten that out over the coming years? I mean, obviously that's the key issue.
So the fixed wireless network will deliver 25 megabit per second peak speed down, 5 megabit per second peak speed up. There were 40-odd thousand people who could get access to that network when we came to government. It's now over 250,000 and continuing to grow. 900 plus base stations, fixed wireless base stations around the country. Then you've got the satellite, so the 2 NBN satellites, the first due to be launched October, November this year. That'll deliver 25 megabit per second peak speed down, 5 megabit per second peak speed up. So the intention is that wherever you are, there will be a technology that is serving you with broadband. Now, there was a lot of rhetoric under the previous government. The performance wasn't great. They'd spent $6 billion and only a bit over 300,000 premises could connect to the NBN when we came to government. Less than 2 years later, it's now over 1.2 million that can connect. So that's about 10% of the total number that needs to connect, so there's still a lot more work to do. This is a complex project, but under Malcolm Turnbull's leadership, we are now getting the rollout in much better shape than it was.
You mean his leadership in the portfolio?
His leadership in the portfolio, that's right.
I want to ask another question related to your portfolio. You recently spoke at an online retailer conference, and you spoke there about how Australian retail had failed to keep up with some innovation worldwide until that innovation was really put right in front of them thanks to the internet. But one of the other innovations that we're just catching up with is levying GST on those overseas purchases. Do you think that's something that's going to assist Australian retailers, and also do you think Australian customers fully appreciate what's coming and the change that it might bring to them when they buy something from an Amazon or an East Bay and have to pay the 10%?
Well, look, a few numbers. Last year, about $17 billion spent by Australians in online retail, and that's about 7% or so of the total offline retail. So while we're moving, there's still a long way to go. That being said, Deloitte put out research that said 30 to 40% of offline decisions are influenced by online channels. Now, in relation to the question of GST, historically the position has been that there's been a threshold of $1,000 on purchases from overseas retailers, below which the GST was not charged, essentially for reasons of the complexity of doing so. It was argued that the cost of doing so would exceed the revenue. But in fact, if you look at, for example, what happens in the US, as you'd be very familiar with, different
I'm a US citizen.
different sales tax regime in every state, indeed in every city. And so when you order online with any of the big US retailers in the US, you will be asked to specify your location, and then they'll apply the sales tax. They then remit that to the tax authorities, state, local, federal. So what Joe Hockey has talked about as the Treasurer is similar arrangements applying to the big online retailers as they sell into Australia. It's not a technical challenge for them. They've done it for years in the US.
Can I just ask you one last question before we run out of time about the whole issue of gay marriage? I asked Kelly O'Dwyer this as well. She made the observation that there was a commitment before the last election by the government, by the Prime Minister, to have a party room discussion this term about whether or not to allow a conscience vote. I made the observation, she didn't disagree with it, that it feels like there's been some slippage about whether or not that is exactly what the commitment was. We're now hearing talk about a possible plebiscite instead. Kelly O'Dwyer said she thinks that's ridiculous to do something like that. Is your firm view that there will be and should be this party room discussion this term by the Liberal Party about whether or not, irrespective of which way it goes, about whether or not to have a conscience vote?
Oh, look, I certainly expect that the issue of gay marriage will be raised in the party room, as it has been at various points in the past. The key sort of process issue is you need to have a bill before the Parliament that is going to be voted on to then have the debate in the party room as to how the party will vote.
That'll happen now, won't it? Now that we know that Warren Edge and Teresa Gambaro are co-sponsoring a bipartisan...
Well, so the first trigger is a bill. There needs to be a bill. At the moment there's a bill moved by Bill Shorten, but as the Prime Minister has said, it would need to be a bill owned by the Parliament, and one that's put forward by one party doesn't meet that test. So then the next question becomes, does that bill come forward for debate? And in the normal way, private members' bills fit into the workload of government bills, and a question. Then a question.
Like you're making excuses that we might never get there.
No, I'm just explaining the process. But that'll be a necessary condition before there's then a debate in the party room as to whether there would be a free vote or not.
Okay. Paul Fletcher, we appreciate you joining us, as well as putting up with all the questions about Bronwyn Bishop. I'm sure that won't be the case unless she's still there, of course.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Paul. Well, here we go.
Adam Goods.
Sonny and Cher.
We need...
I think I come out best.
I think that's offensive to everyone. But look...
yeah, Adam Goods.
I want to ask
something
you about...
more serious. Yes.
The Oz has done... So I would say that I work for the Oz as a disclaimer, but I genuinely think it was a really good editorial on this. This has been a divisive debate. What is your view on it?
Well, I tell you what I've been really surprised about. The reticence of some commentators, and I include in this state premiers, to actually call this out for racism. We've seen and I would say I don't agree with Alan Jones's comments that about that this isn't racist. This is somehow a focus just on Adam Goods. I don't know that that makes it any better or worse, by the way. I think it makes it, but nonetheless. You saw Daniel Andrews yesterday come out and say firmly, this is racist and we need to stop it, and called it for what it was.
Can I ask you a question though on that? I agree that there's racism in the mix here. I don't think it's entirely racism, but I think it's in the mix. Do you think that he has also exacerbated some of it, and that's not an excuse at all.
Daniel Andrews or Adam Goods?
No, Adam Goods with some of his... antics is the wrong word because I don't disagree with a lot of what he's done, but do you think that some of what he has done on the way through has exacerbated, without making an excuse for it, racism that was already...
Are you talking about the celebratory dance after the try? Or because I think there's two things here. One, if you think about someone like Greg Inglis in the NRL, he does his go-Anna move after every try, never been an issue, not a thing. No booing.
Doesn't look like he's coming at the audience, though. I don't know.
He looks kind of fierce when he's doing it.
He's on his knees.
Yeah, look at his face. Look at his...
I'm actually more thinking about the way that Adam Goods, as a West Coast supporter, the way that Adam Goods actually fakes for free kicks all the time.
Oh, well,
I reckon that there was an element of that in the mix.
He only had like 11 or something this year, so I don't even know anything about AFL, but I did read that little tidbit. But are you suggesting that it's his commentary, his comments, his actions outside?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, as I say, I'm not making excuses for it, but I just wonder whether, you know, when you perhaps contribute to exacerbating something, some of what happens, therefore, it's still racism. I'm not disagreeing with you there, and I fundamentally think it needs to be called out, and I don't agree with the Alan Joneses and the Andrew Bolts and others that are going down this path. But I just wonder if he's made a bad situation worse.
Why? Because he spoke up? I mean, look, I have to agree with Waleed Ali on this. Australia's not racist until somebody from a minority steps out of the box, and then people like to jump on top and try and shove them back in. There's an element of truth. I've seen it in politics. I see it in sport. And it's part of our culture that it's an ugly
We need longer on this. We're out of time. But I don't disagree with any of that. And I don't defend the commentators attacking Adam Goods, and I don't defend the crowds, but I think that there are large numbers in the crowds who get wrapped up in the booing who themselves aren't racist. That's what I'd probably say.
Mob mentality. It's ugly.
Yep. All right, we're out of time.
Well, thanks for joining us and To The Point.
I don't even know where to look in this seat, but I'm going to move back to the other one. We'll see you after the break with Newsday, where I'll be sitting somewhere else.
We all want different things in life. Like finally going on that trip you'll never forget. Or maybe you just want to take charge of your finances. Well, that's why Citi brought out a flexible personal loan at just 6.9% per annum for 3 years, with no monthly or annual fees. And you can track it all on Citi's mobile app. Go online to citibank.com.au/loans or call 1300 787 139 today.
At Hotels Combined, we're always hard at work searching for hotel deals. By comparing the top travel sites, we'll find just what you're after.
And it's free.
That's right. Our service is free.
And
we also guarantee to get you the best price.
Best price guaranteed.
Finding a great hotel deal is easy with Hotels Combined.
Too easy.
Check out Hotels Combined
today.
Well, he's walking proof.
Real Insurance made it easy for me to protect my income if I couldn't work.
Real Income Protection Cover will pay you a monthly amount, up to 75% of your income if you can't work because of an accident or illness.
Hi, I'm after an income protection quote.
No problem. You can apply for cover over the phone without the hassle of a medical or a blood test, as long as you're an Australian resident aged 18 to 59.
Sounds great.
Call us on 1300 158 602 to get a quote today.
Martin is the not-so-fast food type. Happy to sit back and wait for his own gourmet creation. Create your taste. How very un-McDonald's.
Dry, tired screen eyes?
Sí.
Sustain Ultra. Lubricant eye drops that work naturally with your tears.
Sí.
A rare and beautiful tiger, trapped by vicious steel cables, slowly dying. WWF's anti-poaching patrol found her barely alive, with deep wounds from the tightening snare, killed for profit, another victim of wildlife crime. By adopting a tiger with WWF, you can help stop their cruel and needless deaths. Adoption costs from just $20 a month. And you'll be supporting our vital work to protect tigers. So please help us stop wildlife crime. Call 1-800-993-003 or visit wwf.org.au/tiger today. Thank you.
are they doing, Grandpa?
They're in retirement. And people did it when I was a boy.
Talk to MLC or one of our advisors about how we can work together to save your retirement.
Every day, thousands of people all over Australia prepare their homes for sale. There are gardens to be trimmed, lounges to be cosied up, and final touches to be finessed. It's all about going that extra yard to make that perfect first impression and achieve that maximum price. Because we all know that first impressions always count, don't we? Remax. We sell every home as if it was our own.
I love being a mum, and I'm pretty good at it.
Can I have toast, please?
I wouldn't call myself super mum.
You forgot my lunch.
Food preparation, not one of my special gifts. But with my new Westinghouse Steam Assist oven, even I can make the perfect roast. Crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. Westinghouse, really clever.
Can you make my cereal in the oven tomorrow?
The veto only compounds the atrocity.
So apologetic to the Australian people. No, I won't resign from the position.
Experts say it is possible that debris is from missing Malaysia Airline Flight 370.
Delivering unrivaled live coverage. This is Sky News Live, Channel of the Year. Live from the Sky News Centre, this is PBO Newsday.
There's a process that's on foot at the moment. I don't prejudge the process. I'll await the outcomes.
That was Kelly O'Dwyer, but you can add Paul Fletcher to the list. Mounting numbers of Liberal Party frontbenchers publicly refusing to support Speaker Bronwyn Bishop. I'll have more details on what is going on in this space as she finally apologises after weeks of waiting. Malaysia Airlines says that it's premature to speculate on whether wreckage found in the Indian Ocean is from the missing flight MH370, but US investigators are confident it's from a Boeing 777. The Prime Minister, via a press release, because he's not fronting the media today, says that Russia's veto of the creation of a criminal tribunal against the MH17